So you want to become a programmer the fastest way possible. Well, that's great, but let's slow down for a minute. Now, learning how to code and getting a job without a degree is totally possible. I mean, I did it after all. But the first thing that you have to understand is just because I say this is the fastest way or somebody else says it's the fastest way of becoming a programmer, that certainly doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And that certainly doesn't mean it's going to happen in a matter of a few weeks. Now, if you play your cards right, you'll have a much better chance of landing a job faster than going down the typical 4-year computer science degree route. However, please remember that all good things take time. And if somebody really tells you that you can learn a valuable skill like coding within 3 months and walk into a $100K a year job, you should really take that with a grain of salt, because I would say on average, the time it takes to learn how to code enough to be considered job ready is around 1,000 hours of dedicated learning and focused project building. Now, I know that 1,000 hours sounds like a lot of time, but I promise you in the grand scheme of things, it's not. And only the persistent individuals will come out on top. So ask yourself, are you persistent enough? All right, so let's dive into step number 1, which is immersing yourself in the niche. Jim Rohn is famously quoted for saying, "You are the average of the 5 people that you spend a majority of your time with," which is why the fastest and the best way to get in the mindset of a programmer is by immersing yourself around people in this niche. That means following people on social media, subscribing to things like tech newsletters, going to tech conferences, and then just networking with other programmers. Become obsessed about coding, be eager to learn, and get in the habit of coding every single day. If you need some help around building habits as it relates to code, I've actually started a 30-day coding challenge for beginners called Code 30 that hundreds of people are already participating in. You can find the link for that in the description. Anyways, the bottom line is to get obsessed about coding however possible. Step number 2, language. When it comes to picking a language as a new programmer, the bottom line is it doesn't matter what language you pick. That's because the concepts and the principles around programming are transferable across all programming languages. With that being said, the best programming language that you could pick if your goal is to become a software developer in the shortest time frame possible is to start with a language that has a lot of utility. The current 2 most popular programming languages in the world are JavaScript and Python, and both of these languages have a ton of utility. So starting with either one of these would be a safe bet. Now, this is purely subjective, but if I were starting over, I would start with JavaScript. And that's because JavaScript is such an easy first language to learn. The syntax is super digestible, and on top of that, it's extremely versatile, meaning that it can be used for front-end web development, back-end web development, mobile applications, and creating desktop apps. It's also a high-level language, meaning that you don't have to stress about the complex stuff like memory management and pointers. And with the language being so utilized in the tech market because of all of its use cases, it's just a great skill to have on your resume. Even if you don't want JavaScript to be your primary language in the long haul, as I've already mentioned, the concepts and principles of programming aren't baked into programming languages. Step number 3, learning the fundamentals. So here's the fundamentals that you need to learn. To learn these fundamentals, you can go one by one, researching them on Google, or you can follow along with free courses, or, in my favorite one, you can leverage ChatGPT to help you learn. Seriously, ChatGPT when learning is an absolute game changer. You would simply take one of these concepts, plug it into ChatGPT by typing something like explain variables in JavaScript to a complete beginner with examples and practice questions. And because doing research online is something you'll be doing a lot as a professional programmer, you should get in the habit of doing it when you're first learning. And hands down, one of the best ways of learning how to code is by building projects as you go. So as you learn about a handful of fundamental concepts, build some simple projects around those concepts, like to-do list applications. Now, if you're looking for a very structured way of learning the fundamentals of programming and eventually getting a job, you can check out the sponsor of today's video, which is Course Careers. Course Careers offers a course known as Software Development Fundamentals that is geared towards helping you learn how to code and get getting you a job. I think this course is great because of its market-driven approach. And what I mean by that is that it teaches you skills that are immediately applicable in today's job market. Now, one thing that really stood out to me about this course is its focus on fundamental concepts and core principles of software development, which, as I previously noted, understanding these foundational elements is crucial as they provide skills applicable across all programming languages. Additionally, the course collaborates with companies that provide interviewing opportunities for people who actually graduate from the course, all while offering you a comprehensive mentorship program the entire way through the curriculum. And this was one thing that really made me interested in taking this brand deal, because mentors play such a pivotal role in learning how to code, because they can offer personalized feedback and you can have a real person reviewing your code as you learn. Not only that, but these mentors will simulate the experience of working in a real organization, so when you do start a job, you can hit the ground running. Now, the best part is the course begins with free modules, allowing you to experience the learning style firsthand before committing to any sort of payment. So for those who are interested, make sure you check out the link for that in the description. All right, so let's dive into step number 4, which is learning a tech stack. Now, learning one high-level programming language like Python or JavaScript certainly won't make you job ready. And that's because most software is built with some sort of tech stack. Now, a tech stack is a set of programming languages, frameworks, and tools that help you build full end-to-end software solutions. So a tech stack will contain tools for building the front-end layer or the user interface portion of a piece of software, tools to build the backend layer or server-side logic for that piece of software, and then a database layer the backend uses to store pieces of user data for said software. Now, there are a ton of tech stacks out there that you can learn, but the idea is with tech stacks is that it's not only learning about the tools, it's about understanding how they are used to build connected software systems. However, if I had to give a suggestion for those who started with JavaScript, a natural progression would be to start with a front-end JavaScript-based framework like React, Vue, or Angular. From there, learning Node.js for backend development would be a good idea. And then from there, learning how to utilize a relational database like Postgres. So by learning React, Node, and Postgres, you'll have a very beginner-friendly tech stack under your belt. Step 5, project creation. The next step is to focus your efforts on project creation and portfolio building. Now, a portfolio is such a crucial tool for employers to gauge your ability, as they are vital for demonstrating your coding skills, particularly for those entering into the field without any sort of degree or experience under their belt. Now, when building projects for your portfolio, learn Git and GitHub so you have a place to store and showcase your work. When it comes to building projects, aim for 2 to 3 thoroughly developed projects. Now, these projects should be somewhat unique and demonstrate your ability to solve real-world problems. Now, when I mention unique, I'm not suggesting that you need to invent the next tech unicorn, and it's perfectly fine if you're short on original ideas. A tried and true strategy is to pick an existing popular piece of software and sort of iterate on top of that and rebrand it as your own. And remember to steer clear of overly simple projects like to-do list projects for your portfolio, because remember, your portfolio will serve as your testament to your coding abilities when looking for a job. Now, even though the tech stack that I recommended you to start with is mostly geared towards web development, at this point, I would actually encourage you to venture outside of the world of web dev and explore other technologies for project ideas that you might be interested in. It's definitely good to have a thoroughly developed full stack web project for one of your portfolio items, but another great portfolio idea could be something like a video game or maybe a robotics project. Almost every entry-level developer focuses solely on web development. So the more that you learn outside of web dev, the more marketable you will be and the more you will stand out when looking for jobs. Step 6, building a resume. By building a few very solid portfolio projects, you'll have excellent selling points for piecing together a resume, as your portfolio projects essentially serve as your set of credentials that can be showcased on a resume resume, especially if you don't have a degree or work experience. Now, creating a good resume and laying out your projects in an appealing way might be pretty tough, which is why I recommend investing in a professional resume writer to help you out, or even by downloading the free entry-level template that I bought myself from a professional resume writer. And when building your resume, I want you to put yourself in the hiring manager's shoes. Ask yourself, if I was the hiring manager, why would I want to hire myself? With this in mind, build your resume around really interesting projects and your accomplishments. Now, another great way to get experience on your resume as an entry-level developer is by doing low commitment engagements on Upwork, even if it's for low or no pay. By spending time freelancing, you'll have another unique selling point on your resume that most people won't bother doing. Step 7, finding a job. Now, I'm gonna keep this a buck with you. This is going to be grueling. This is going to be super discouraging at times, as you're going to have to apply to hundreds and hundreds of companies without ever getting a call back. And when you do manage to get an interview on the schedule, you'll likely flop, and you'll flop hard. That's because tech interviews are a skill that you can only get better at by doing. But please stay persistent, because when it gets hard is when most people quit. Now, the coding interview will vary from company to company, and a lot of people will say that you need to master the data structures and algorithms coding interview, but that's really only true for big tech companies. Any small or medium-sized non-tech company will likely have you do something like a take-home project or an online assessment, but the only real way to find out is by interviewing for the company, in which case you should be prepared enough from your learning and from your project building. If you do fail an interview, reflect on what went wrong and work on improving both the technical and behavioral aspects. And remember, just keep trying. Because getting a job requires going through many interviews, it's important to increase the number of interviews that you get on the schedule. While this can totally be done by brute force applying to thousands of jobs, you'll have a much better conversion rate if you network and get referrals from actual people. This is why networking in tech is key, because landing an interview usually isn't about what you know, it's about who you know. Anyways, I know I threw a ton of information at you all at once, but if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them, as you can get direct access to me inside of my programming community, Software Developer Academy. The link for that will be in the description. Other than that, I will see you all in the next one. Peace.